With the captain at the con and navigator on the bridge, Slater and her crew departed the Orange State Pier at 0703 on the morning of 8 August 1944. For most of the summer, Slater had been partaking in torpedo training exercises with TBF Avengers, preparing for deployment to the Pacific. Through these drills, the crews of both Slater and the aircraft developed the skills necessary for naval warfare. As they sailed, the daily steering casualty and man overboard drills were conducted. Upon arrival to the torpedo exercise area, all damage control parties manned their stations for the possibility of hull penetration, which happened only weeks earlier. As the final arrangements were made, Captain Blanc held captain's mast. L.W. Collins, Seaman Second Class, was awarded a court-martial for failing to muster at his station and stand watch. Seaman First Class Darminio and T.O. O'Neill received a warning for leaving their general quarters station without permission. After this was over, all the magazines were inspected and the chronometers were wound.
If you want to fill them with air, bomb them. If you want to fill them with water, torpedo them. The standard question of every torpedo pilot has always been, when do we get a torpedo that can be launched from high altitudes and great speed?
At 12:05, all engines were stopped, following a hit around frame 29 and 30 on the port side from an erratic surface torpedo. The skin was not penetrated, and the exercise was resumed 40 minutes later. This continued for a few more hours before Slater returned to Orange State Pier and moored with 6 lines. On this date, C.G. Pfaff, Chief Motor Machinist Mate, reported for duty from USS Christiana, YAG 32. 3-inch 50 caliber rounds were received, as were food stores, which were inspected by the supply officer, Lieutenant Agnew. On the 9th, training continued with the torpedo planes. Lieutenant Saluthes and Lieutenant Wilson joined the ship to observe, and on this day, Slater towed a target behind the ship for the pilots to target. Other than being an extremely long day, with the exercises going into the night hours, the 9th was relatively calm. Slater sailed through the night and into the morning hours of the 10th and resumed torpedo training exercises at daylight. Observing officers returned to the ship, and a single man was added to the sick list. J.A. Tumlin, Seaman First Class. As a TBF Avenger squadron made dummy runs on the ship, punishments were given by the captain. H. Cully, Seaman Second Class, was given solitary confinement for 5 days on bread and water for shirking duty. H. Ronsky, Seaman Second Class, was also awarded 5 days of solitary confinement on bread and water for shirking duty, using profane language, and disrespecting a petty officer. Following completion of TBF runs, Slater returned to Orange State Pier and welcomed back DiGiovanni, Shipfitter Third Class, Kendall, Fireman First Class, Booz, Seaman First Class, and Lewis, Seaman Second Class, from the Naval Dispensary for treatment for lead poisoning. Cully and Ronsky were transferred to the Marine Barracks for 5 days of solitary confinement on bread and water. On the 11th, Slater returned to the torpedo exercise area at 20 knots, arriving at 0850. During this drill, Slater maintained a 9-degree rudder at full speed to sail in a circular pattern. TBF Squadron 42 made their runs and fired 11 torpedoes throughout the day. She returned to port that evening after momentary anchorage west of Key West, Florida, in 23 feet of water due to a rain squall. Stores were taken aboard after arriving at Orange State Pier, and they were inspected by Williams, ship's cook first class, and 3,760 gallons of fresh water was received. After arriving at the rendezvous area for more training on the 12th, R.F. Sterner, radarman third class, was added to the sick list. At 10:11, an abandoned ship drill was conducted. The starboard rafts and floater nets went over the side, and they were retrieved by the whaleboat and returned at 10:55. A target was dropped in the water, and 40mm Bofors crews practiced exercising their guns. Next, a smokescreen was laid down, and 2 bottles of Elco Type A smoke were expended. After this, a rappel border drill, and the rappel border parties mustered and expended 200 rounds of 30 caliber at a target. The torpedo target drills commenced at 1602, and 7 torpedoes were fired at Slater. She returned to Orange State Pier at 1823 and moored port side to the south side of the pier. The 13th was very quiet. The ship changed berths to the naval operating base with the assistance of tug YTL 297, the Rubo Goldberg, on the port quarter. Slater moored starboard side to pier, and LSM 139 moored herself to Slater's port side. Lieutenant John Plummer left for 48 days of liberty to Miami, and a group of enlisted left for 10 days of leave. On the 14th, Slater remained at the naval operating base. LSM 139 continued to be moored to Slater, and the SOPA, that is the senior officer present afloat, of the fleet was in USS Dahlgren, DD 187. George Dean, Seaman Second Class, reported under naval custody of Norfolk, Virginia, after being reported a straggler. All his records and personal effects were transferred to the receiving station, the naval operating base in Norfolk, and Byron E. Crosby, Boatswain's Mate First Class, reported for duty at 1633. Thanks for watching another week in Slater's deck logs. If you enjoy the work going on aboard USS Slater, consider heading over to our website and becoming a member. For only $25, you can help support the museum and ensure the stories of the greatest generation live on for future generations.